And for more on this conversation, let's now bring in Kumi Naidoo, who is the president of Fossil Fuel Treaty Initiative and who's also a climate activist. Kumi, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. Now, this webinar was held today. Of course, this as we observe World Cities Day. This is a day, of course, that was earmarked by the United Nations. Perhaps tell us more about this day and the importance of it.
So, focusing on cities, which is what this day is about, has become critically important because cities are where many people are congregating with high levels of migration, and the cities are not able to actually deliver the basic services to a large extent. But one of the things that we've seen as the pressure has come onto cities, urban green spaces have been eliminated and many parks and gardens have shrunk in size or are not available in a safe way. And what we know is that, globally speaking, we are suffering from a challenge of eco-anxiety and climate anxiety, so much so that young girls in many parts of the world now are even sort of making decisions already not to have kids and so on because of the future threats of climate change and what they're seeing happening right now. So today's event is about saying that if we are going to address climate change, we have to address the question of not only the physical challenges from breathing bad air and so on, but also the mental challenges. And green spaces, for example, offer spaces, where people can deal with anxiety, and it helps combat depression and so on.
And as we delve deeper into this topic, and perhaps if you can expand on, when it comes to urbanization and what it actually means for climate change as well as global warming.
So basically, if we look at where the problem of climate change is and what's causing it, which is our dependence on oil, coal and gas and high levels of energy use. If you look at in the rural areas, our people in rural areas are energy poor in not only South Africa, but all across the continent. And if you look at the inequity in terms of how much of, if you want, energy is consumed in the cities versus the rural areas, it's just very, very wide apart, right? So then when we look at the cities themselves, there is such a demand on water, electricity, and so on. And when in South Africa and in many parts of the world, we still continue to rely on fossil fuel-based energy, which is energy that comes from oil, coal and gas, rather than transitioning away from it, then the problem is going to get serious. So right now, when we look at what the climate scientists are telling us, we are beyond 5 minutes to midnight for us to make changes. And cities are always in the front line because that's where the largest concentration of people live, that's where the largest emissions are, that's where the largest pollution problems are, and so on.
And Kumi, when we speak about this urban climate action plan, what should be the focus for a country like ours?
So firstly, we need to recognize that our cities have been neglected in South Africa for far too long. The combination of inefficiency, corruption, and a lack of political will has led to many of our communities, cities being degraded. I myself am a resident of Yeoville, and I can tell you that the Yeoville Bellevue Ratepayers Association has been struggling to address these issues. So, for example, even in terms of green spaces, right, communities are having to create them themselves, and we were blessed to have one of the leaders in our community take the lead in recovering a park, Stewart Drive Park, for example. And I would say to people right now, we have to try to push for change from below. What I mean by that is we almost have to embarrass our government into action by saying, if you won't fix the pothole, if you won't address the cleaning up our parks to make them safe and habitable and usable for our kids, let's pull together as people in Yeoville and other parts of the country have tried to do. So, but there has to be investment, right? And the investment has to be also in terms of community infrastructure, ensuring also that we think more creatively about our energy system and try to, one of the things that we've been saying is if we turn every roof of every home every school, every place of worship, every workplace into two things: an energy generator, as well as by putting solar panels, as well as an income generator, because people can then be incentivized to save the energy generated and feed it into the grid. All of these things are happening in Africa and other parts of the world. We need political will now to get off the dirty energy dependency that we have. And let's just be clear, we can plant trees, we can do recycle, all of those things are good things. But if we don't address the cause of climate change, which is the burning of oil, coal, and gas, the main cause, we are going to get ourselves more and more into difficulties. So that's a painful discussion. None of us are saying we can make the transition overnight, but we are saying no fresh investments in energy that's going to kill our children's future, and let's phase out as fast as possible.
And maybe let's also talk about that, Kumi. What would be the impact? Should we not find solutions now to the kind of problems we are facing that, of course, leads to issues around global warming and climate change?
Absolutely. I'm in Brazil at the moment, about to attend, having just come from the biodiversity COP in Colombia. And in 1992 in Brazil, there was a thing called the Earth Summit, which was the first sort of global climate negotiation where the science told us you'll have to change. If you continue like this, you will have the kind of thing that happened in my city, Durban, where I grew up 2.5 years ago, when you'll remember the people experienced a rain bomb, right? And in 2 days, we lost about 450 people and billions of dollars in infrastructure loss. Now, we, since 1992, especially the powerful nations on the world who gave us fossil fuels, have continued. And then we got dependent because those big multinational corporations from the so-called global north, from the rich countries, dominated our energy extraction for a long time. And so what we have to recognize now, that we dragged our feet for very long, and that this struggle to avert catastrophic climate change, let's just be very clear, it's not about saving the planet. The planet actually does not need saving. Why I say that, if we continue on the way that we are, what will be the end result? We warm up the planet to the point where in parts of Africa right now, we cannot grow food because it's too hot. We destroy our soil. We destroy our water resources. The end result is we won't be able to provide food. And the very end result is we will be gone as a species, the planet will still be here. So people need to understand that the struggle to avert catastrophic climate change is about protecting our children and their children's future. So when our governments tell us, oh, it's too difficult to make the changes and so on, no, it's too difficult not to make the changes. Not to make the changes is a death sentence to our children and their children's future. So there has to be much more acceptance of the science. The science is clear. We cannot change the science. All we can change is political will. And as we are seeing in civil society in South Africa, with the People's Climate Charter and other processes where we are putting the pressure and trying to build the political will, I hope our governments will listen before it's too late. And some say it's already, for the people who died in Durban 2 years plus ago, it was already too late for them. We need to recognize it's going to get much worse if we don't move much faster to get off fossil fuels, oil, coal, and gas.
All right, Kumi, thank you so much for your time. That is Kumi Naidoo there, President of Fossil Fuel Treaty Initiative, also a climate activist, talking to us there about the Urban Climate Action Plan and some of the plans that South Africa can get a foot of in terms of trying to find solutions to climate change and global warming.